Part 2. You don't even need to hear the rest. You know who I am, you know who JD is, and you know who Will is. And I'm both.
Yo, what's up?
It's me, your boy Wasabi.
I know. That is the line. That is the line for sure.
Yeah, I mean mine's boring. At least yours is a little cheeky, a little fun. My name is. It's literally like I'm at an interview.
That's fair. Oh man.
What's up, my boy?
Talking about interviews, we got some interesting community questions that we're gonna answer later on. I just needed a segue.
Nice segue.
But
segue to nothing.
I'm doing well. I had my first I think day of work where I didn't feel like such a freaking noob. And that's big.
That's big.
I realized I'm so fucking good on the Google Excel game, on the Microsoft Excel game. I'm so good at spreadsheets, and I kind of like spreadsheets. So that kind of gave me energy to get some stuff that I wasn't feeling done. But dude, cheers to part 2.
Cheers, brother. Bam,
cheers.
Right into the webcam.
Bam. Yeah, right there. Let's get into it. We kind of left off on reflecting on season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone on a few of these rants, so I'm gonna put you in the driver's seat to kind of kick us off here.
Sure. Yeah, where does my head go? Season 2. I think the biggest thing, it was, first off, how cool was it that Dudester, our boy Justin, huge shout outs off the rip, put together that little playlist of season 2 stuff, which included the video of your clips. And one other cheeky thing that was season 2 stuff, right?
It was an entirety of season 2. It was the playlist. Yeah. It was great.
And it was just scrolling through one at a time and just reading just the titles.
Yeah. And looking at that thumbnail art as well.
I mean, that's all you, buddy. That was it was all
Still gives me goosebumps.
But it was it was a trip, and that was, I think, today that I looked through that.
No, that was today. That was this morning, man.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
For real. And so I guess the first thing my head goes to is again, I gratitude is obvious and should always just be like at least a stopping point, like very grateful we were able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously growth mindset, I think, is something that was always there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an ultimate success. I think it's our best success to date is how season 2 went, because one of the only goals we set, and this is another shout out to Ventus, to Matt, who kind of put this in our minds that we could have flourishes, we could do bonus content, we could try new things, but we just need to be consistent. And we were quite consistent. I think we might have missed a few weeks, and the weeks we did, we tossed in like a 1v1. We just kind of buckled down and did the basics really well. And 23, 24 episodes is a considerable amount to be consistent in. And it's also I think we're very consistent in our, messaging. We never tried to go to talk about things we didn't care about. We were always showing up and speaking from the same place every week, even though the topics would be different and where we would be different. We were always talking about kind of what's going on right now. Like, how do I feel now? And so I think that's great. And a good amount of that is going to carry over. Season 3 is not going to be a huge jump right away. It's going to be a similar thing. So that's where my head goes. And I know you've had rants, but I am curious where your mind's been sitting. What's been festering?
Yeah. So I think for me, and I have strong thoughts on this one. I don't know why. I have strong thoughts on this one. But I think the playlist was so sick. So like I gotta give a second shout out to Doodle. He also made my like Wasabi Sabi logo, which was sick. And
in the video.
honestly, when I was kind of like still feeling sad and stressed and kind of panicky and stuff like that early on the week before I had like my first like good day of work, I actually went back and watched the Wasabi combo video that you
Oh,
guys made me as a surprise. And honestly, it kind of got me like it pulled me a little bit out of the funk
wow.
that I've been in. So I gotta say props to you and Doodle for that, because like
That's
that's
awesome.
something that I can like always turn back to and like look at and like feel a lot of appreciation towards and kind of like get recentered. So thank you for that, first of all, because I know you planned it as well, and then Doodle did all the magnificent music and editing and clip finding and all of that.
Yeah, I wanted to
um
split credit, and I literally can't sit here and split credit. It's a split, just
that's
not
fair.
50-50. But yeah, go on.
Not 50-50. But um the what I'm getting at is I think that like with season 2, the thing that I'm honestly most thankful for, that especially going back and looking at like how much we've grown as people, like there's two parts to this really, but in terms of being thankful, I think it's something that honestly the episodes won't show, which is kind of giving me goosebumps. And the reason why is because like we have like now a community around this
Oh
podcast
yeah.
of friends and homies, of people that like we need to meet for the first time, which is crazy considering how much amount of time that I've spent with them in this like weird pandemic sort of situation, also with the advent of like internet and social media. But like it's just crazy that I wake up and I'm like, okay, like what did Cypher say? Okay, what's the Chemore meme of the day? Okay, like what is Morehead pondering about? And then like okay, what is most streaming? And then is Doodle back in the Discord finally?
Yeah,
You
right, right,
know?
right, right.
And like it's crazy, but like that's something that like if you asked me about that, I really didn't think, like I didn't know how is probably a better way we would like build a community.
Hmm.
Like I knew that was like something we wanted, but I actually like didn't know how to approach it, and I'm just happy with how it's growing, continuing to grow, and that. So like I'm happy that we have this Discord and it's just like really really chill and low key, and it's just a bunch of homies and then episode discussions and stuff like that. Like dude, the post episode discussion is by far my favorite channel whenever
Yeah.
it pops up. But my other thought I think is like I think it's so cool, like especially with us being Gary V fans, and like the idea of this podcast is just like just to document our lives and growing up and becoming adults while liking this game for the Nintendo GameCube. Uh, we kind of documented like arguably like such a like weird and like historic part of our
Yeah.
life experience,
Mm-hmm.
it being like the pandemic and all of that, like on top of like just like the struggles of growing up anyway.
Mm.
But I think like I could see a few years from now like looking back at season 2 being like my favorite, partially because it was just like such a shit show at times. You know,
Yeah. Oh
I mean
yeah.
like on top of like again, like people love saying like, oh, Wasabi switched to like a different controller for season 2. But like the job roller coaster has been crazy. The pandemic has been crazy. Your move
Mm.
with has been nutty as well. Getting a dog and interrupting half of our
Do you hear her?
podcast episodes.
Is that
No,
audible?
I can't hear it now.
I,
No,
it
no.
might be in the recording.
Perfect timing then. Yeah.
Yeah.
That, and then like even like me like moving away like partially from my family to a certain extent, right? Like I'm they're still in my life, but like I even seeing the family boundaries episode, right, where we first started changing the thumbnails, like that brings me back, and it's just like such a turbulent point in my life that I, looking back, am so thankful we got to document for personal reasons. And I think that is like one of the coolest things. And then like going into season 3, it's like really like what's going to happen next, and I don't know, but that's the fun part, is like I did not expect any of what happened in season 2 to happen, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, that's the thing. It's like part of this is um You must be able to hear that a little bit. Part of this,
I heard that one.
good. Uh, uh, Part of it is looking at season 3 and feeling a little bit, at least from my perspective, feeling a little bit of pressure to do the other side of the coin of growth mindset is when you think of necessary growth or always up, or you know what I mean, the kind
Mm-hmm.
of toxic underbelly of always improvement is never taking a step back, and there's almost
Yeah, imagine waking up and not grinding, JD. Couldn't be me.
yeah, right, 100% all the time. And I think the instinct going into a new season is like, oh, we're going to do this even better than season 2. And we had that from season 2. Oh, what are we going to do better than season 1? And uh trying and failing is one thing that has kept coming up over this past season. And I think what's my the takeaway I'm finding right now, which is honestly great, is that those things don't come to mind on reflection until we dig in and try to find them, because it's almost like there's a way to make the failures still have the upside, and then make that the first thing you think of is the benefit of the failure. You know what I mean? So for example, I brought this up in part 1, but the 1v1s I think we had 6 in the
Yeah, we
bag,
had like 6 lined up for February.
and it
Uh,
was a little bit of a mini this is actually something I talked about in therapy yesterday, was this idea of having so much to edit I get overwhelmed, and a huge part of that was the diagnosis and the ADD medication, and ultimately medicated or not, it's still something I had to deal with. And
mhm.
literally yesterday, I had therapy session, a recording, and actually we recorded the day before, apologies, but yesterday I had a therapy session, and um, me starting this new podcast was getting into similar territory where I was recording a lot of raw footage, experimenting with music, doing
Mhm.
monologues, unprepared monologues, and um, I had 2 hours worth that over the course of 3 days. And the lesson of season 2 was so fresh, and it was so like the arc came full circle. It was a finished arc, a finished mistake,
Mm.
and then actually finding the solution to the mistake, and then internalizing the lesson.
Like the true hero's journey sort of thing that
Yeah,
English people love to talk about. But yeah,
sure.
essentially the hero's journey.
A bit, yeah. It's like a hero's journey, but put that into a little side quest. You know what I mean? It's
Yes. Yeah.
and so what the lesson that I pulled from that was just that editing is crucial. And even though my plan in the future would be to work hard enough now in the short term to, perhaps build that Patreon in a year, and then I could pay an editor, whatever that
Mhm.
may be, is to offset some of that editing work. But bottom line was I needed to sit down and do it, and I did. And I chunked out therapist advice, which I will share for free. Is like,
Mhm.
she goes, you should, set aside your half hour to do what you need to do, because I explained to her all I intellectually knew how important it was. Again,
Mhm.
reflecting on what happens when I do 6 interviews and I put it all in one folder, and it's just like, I don't want to start it anymore. And she goes, you have to edit. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll sit down for 30 minutes and edit. And, if something comes up, I'll, I could do that, but I'll just, she goes, no, 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 no. That is sacred time. You, that half
Yeah.
hour editing is not for anything else. If something comes up, you push it until the end of that half hour, and then you do it, because this,
Mm.
this is your, if you don't do this, you're going to be someone who just makes and makes and makes and makes and never produces, and no one sees your shit until you die. But pretty much. And I'm like,
Pretty
fuck,
much, yeah.
fuck, I don't want someone to just find a hard drive and have to like dig through hours of bullshit.
Yeah.
And to wrap up this thought, and it's funny you mentioned Excel. I want to show you what I've been working on through the edit, where the solution was to break up editing into 2 chunks, where the first part is literally I take an hour and I sort it in Excel by SKU. So I'll save a chunk, like a 4 minute chunk, that's a monologue or it's a song. I'll give
Mm-hmm.
it like a code, which will be like MONO -1 or MONO -2, all the numbering, what kind of thing it is. Put like the timestamp, what original recording is it from, and I'm gonna just try to do that for all the recordings I do going forward. And that wouldn't be my experience if it wasn't for what we did. Like, I feel like this podcast is living proof of my hypothesis of why the Melee community is so great. It
Mm-hmm.
is that we love the game and we love the process of learning through the game. That and we use that to carry all the other things we want to do with our lives. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as you've explained in your video with getting a job, or starting a new podcast, it's a literal 1-to-1 comparison.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so I think being able to document that part of it too, of like, hey, we are living, even though it's very meta all the time, we are kind of living the truth of what we want to get out of this. Like, we are getting out of it what we want. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I getting too kind? Am I huffing my own fumes right now? A little too
No,
much.
no, no, you're not. The thing I was gonna reference, which is funny, um, was like I love this idea of sacred time, right? Like that time is like you don't touch it. And that's what I'm trying to do with like recreating my schedule. Part of it is starting with like just sleeping earlier because like since work starts at 7, I realize I need to expel some energy before I start work so that I can like kind of focus. Even with the medication, like I'm just so used to like my routine of like playing Melee before work or studying matches on the bus or train and stuff like that. So I actually have to wake up earlier, and I have to wake up at 6, so that I can like get a good 45 minutes of Melee and solo practice before work is, so that I'm not like playing Melee like in like during the work hours, right?
During meetings, have
Because
you be honest? Have you played Melee during a meeting yet?
no, not yet,
Not like a town hall.
not yet.
Good. Never, right? Never.
Never. Well,
That's
dude, I just wake up and grind, man.
okay.
Imagine not doing that.
Imagine
But
not grinding.
yeah, imagine not grinding. But one of the things that changed between yesterday when we talked and today was that was like what got me out of the funk of my work thing. On top of the video that you and Doodle made on the Wannabes channel, um, I actually went to Healthy Gamer, which I love to do once in a while because I really felt lost. Like I really felt like overwhelmed and paralyzed, but it was like the kind of paralyzed where like the more I am paralyzed, the more anxiety producing it is because I just need to like grind it out. Like I just needed to like finish certain things. But what was kind of really interesting was he was talking about this idea of active versus passive challenges when you're feeling overwhelmed. And the thing I realized was like on top of like me adjusting to work and the surprise of like, oh wait, you still hold some trauma from like how your old job treated you, on top of my cat getting sick, dealing with like my family visiting or planning a trip in August and like other stuff, right? Like I felt like there were so many passive challenges that are put upon me that I have to kind of like pivot to versus active challenges, which are challenges that you choose for yourself. And so really being overwhelmed is not like sometimes it is just simply you're trying to do too much and you need to rest. But also I needed to really it was more about for me about like the balance of like active challenges versus passive challenges. And that's kind of what I'm hearing with you as well about like setting that time aside and making it sacred, right? Because it's not like it's going to be easy regardless, but it's a challenge you're choosing to do also, right? That like even if it's annoying at times, it will give you ultimately net over a span of like months and days energy back, right? And so I think that's what kind of got me out of the funk is just like simply understanding that, and like I'm still working through a lot of that now. It's not like fully solved, but it was like a simple 12-minute video would recommend. But that kind of started getting me out of my funk, honestly, because it was just like I realized like, okay, like life's kind of been like hitting me with a lot of curveballs, which happens, happens a lot. That's just part of growing up. But like, how do you offset it? And it was like just very clear I need to like make time for myself to like add active challenges in, because like it just felt like I had no agency for
Mm,
kind of like the last, honestly, 2 weeks. Like I was telling PR this, I was feeling really down, truthfully, because it just felt like I was almost like just like watching myself go through the motions,
mm,
if that made sense. So I'm happy to kind of like starting to get out of that funk, honestly, right now. But that's kind of what I heard, similar to like your therapist saying also, like, of like setting time aside, like sacred time that doesn't get interrupted, because that is, one could look at it as like that is an active challenge that you are committing to, week in, week out, sort of thing.
yeah. Yeah, it certainly is. And I think the agency of it, I like that word. I like agency. I like, um, and I relate to that because I'm putting myself in the mindset. It was literally last night. It was less than 24 hours
Yeah.
ago. What I'm processing. How sick is it that we recorded like 2 days ago and already we're like, wait, but this thing happened. I
It's
need to
it's changed. It's
digest this.
changed, and it literally has been like, what's, Jesus Christ, I can't do math.
Third,
36 hours pretty much
sure.
since we recorded.
And so, I mean, yeah, I don't want to harp on it too much, but we're talking about season two, and I think I really can't overstate the importance of what I'm trying to do and how it feels to be this far along in a project.
Hmm.
One, because this is something that started similarly to a lot of other ideas I've had, like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast. Oh, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. Oh, I'm going to start, I don't know, my own tournament series, or I'm going to become a teacher, or these are all real examples. Oh, I'm going to start selling things on eBay and make a lot of money that way. I'm going to start a side business in the Philippines. Like, these are all things that have come up as, I hate to use the word manic. That's what comes up to
Hmm.
mind. It's not quite mania, but it's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like mania light. Um,
Yeah.
and this was the first time where I had that, maybe a better word is inspiration or eureka moment that started really strong and I wanted to work on it and I did for a few days and then it dipped and then it came back and then it dipped and it came back and it's still going. And have to I have to make the call that if we hadn't done this podcast, I might still be looking for what it means to work on something for a long time, what it means to be
Hmm.
successful over a reasonable amount of time rather than, you know, getting inspiration and then dropping and then going on Twitter and then getting jealous that Ludwig broke another record. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that was something, a kind of a cycle I was stuck in. And now the confidence I've been able to get where I know I'm going to fail in relative terms from time to time, and I know I've already succeeded in a long term project and continuously doing so, and I've developed the skills that I know it's within my capabilities to do both. As we've said,
Hmm.
this podcast is very easy, and our capability increases will be alongside of Patreon, and it's just the slow roll of it just feels a lot more doable. And the micro example of last night editing was just the first time where I felt accomplished in all the different aspects. Like I finally did the one thing that I hadn't done yet, which was
Hmm.
properly edit the way I knew was necessary. Um, and that's all season two, man. Like it seriously was that. It's it's crazy how little expectation I had for it going into it too. It's like
Hmm.
let's just start at, we'll just make sure we talk once a week and we'll just start season two. Like let's just get back into it. We like doing it. And then it's turning into this like, oh fuck, I'm so grateful. Remember that sick episode and oh my, like It's just wild how little I knew this was going to be.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because to kind of bring it back to part one, we kind of raised our Super Saiyan level like after the fact, right? Because it almost feels like it's just so little energy for us at this point to like record during the week.
It's literally just
Like
time. It's just finding the time.
like we just need to find like when our schedules converge finally, which is like tricky with time zone differences and like work if we don't do it on the weekends and stuff like that.
Right.
Like in this case, but it was my birthday, it was your girlfriend's birthday, so it happens.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? But I mean, like aside from that, like it just feels like so automatic at this point, and I think like that's similar to what like the whole Super Saiyan thing we were getting at with part one with the last episode. So I think that is really interesting to kind of go to. I'm curious now to like think about as we move forward. It's hard to even speculate what season 3 will bring. So let's not think of it in that light, and rather I'd like to pose a different point of view with it, which is like what how best to phrase this. It's more so of just like with us knowing like how season 1 was, right? Season 1 was like the intro, season 2 was like us finding ourselves like going through stuff, getting agency arguably, right? We love that word now. But season 3, right? We don't know what it's going to entail, but I think we can talk about like what we're excited about and like what stuff we want to like try to bring back that we've experimented and tried. And I think like part of that is like also with the launch of the Patreon, which is coming soon. We'll tweet about it for sure once we've decided a date. But yeah, and we got a surprise once the Patreon releases too, which is cool too. But I think that's kind of where my head is at right now before we get into Discord community questions.
Yeah, I think that's a really good phrasing because there's no way we can predict, right, what's going to happen. Which is part of the beauty of this is that we, we'll often have an idea of what topics we want to talk about, but we rarely know what the hell we're going to talk about. And that's why I enjoy doing this, and that's why it's remained easy, right? So the drawback is we've no idea what the hell we're going to do. But I think obviously IRL tournaments is going to be a huge, documenting the renaissance of IRL tournaments, of majors, and doing our best. What I'm looking forward to is I want to start doing interviews at majors.
Nice.
I'll even go as far as to say I would be happy if I could do, between 5 and 10 only 1v1s a year if they're all in person. Like I wouldn't mind retiring this. I probably won't, but that is what I want to try to figure out. And if that is, a bunch of them are at locals, fine, great. If
I got a fun idea for you.
If it's at majors, awesome. What's your idea?
Money match. They win, they get $5. You win, you get the interview.
I think we've talked about this.
Be drunk for like half the time, which is gonna be really funny too.
Being drunk for half the time?
I mean, like you do money matches like late at night though. So I could see you cracking out like a 20-minute interview, like at 1 a.m. in a major hotel in the bathroom because that's the only quiet spot.
Right. Yeah, we'll
jokes aside,
we'll figure it out. I mean that's a great idea, frankly. But I think
on the toilet.
I think the experience we have now and all these things, it's like I want to give that a solid shot.
Yeah, of course.
And if it's just to get myself a media pass so I can sneak into the VIP room, that's all I need. But truth be told, I think it would make for just a better conversation. I think it's funny because me and you have never done IRL once. We did it once.
No, never.
We did one when we played a session and then we recorded on your bed. We were laying next to each other above the sheets and we had we had the blue microphone.
It was hot because I don't have blinds, and in that New York apartment I didn't have blinds, remember? So it was like freaking burning through the class.
Yeah, I remember that. I like that apartment. But me and you have always been uh over the internet, which is fine because we understand each other's cadence and all that stuff, and we know each other so well now that it's not a detriment. But if I'm meeting someone for the first time, part of me wants to like sit down and play friendlies for half an hour on a CRT and like
Yeah.
have a beer or two and then be like, all right, you ready to record? And then we just have a conversation that way. Like, I think going for something like that could be a nice, unique twist
Mm-hmm.
on what I wanted out of the 1v1, because another thing that happened this season was, and this is very much worth talking about, is Cypher and starting of BSM.
Dude, I did not think. Dude, it's so
It's
crazy. It's
incredible.
blown out of proportion in such the sickest way. But like every time I see someone praise BSM, which is arguably like twice a week now on my newsfeed,
Sure.
it's like, it's like, yeah, that's so deserving.
Yeah, and what's so sick about it is like, first off, one of my goals was to someday inspire someone to do a podcast, because early on I realized I want more of these. Like, I just want to hear more people's experiences, because we are by definition limited.
Yeah, we
Just
can only do so much.
because, yeah, and so I love the idea of us doing 1v1s and capturing people's voices. That's not going anywhere, but the pressure to be one of the, because we were kind of one of the only people doing origin story type stuff.
I think we were the only one at the time.
Yeah,
I mean, like Last Stock Legends did it before us,
sure.
which inspired this, and like, but really it was us. Yeah.
Yeah, and having that, be what it was, and the experience of interviewing people and all that, great. It was just I didn't really care as much as talking to you every week. Like,
Yes.
that felt more, setting up an interview and doing that feels like work still. That feels like, all right, let me show up, and I have great conversations. It's fun. Like, I recorded with Nathan Sandwich the other day. Great. It went awesome.
Shout outs, yeah.
But it's a different feeling, and it's more of a capacity thing than this is. And so when Cypher came along and started just talking to all the people we had envisioned giving a platform, and providing that platform, and documenting what they've done, along with their take on it's almost doing two things. It's like documenting what's happening in the Smash community, which we don't give a fuck about on this podcast. Like, I don't think we've talked about current events.
Since only because I know the thumbnail, since Wolf and Volleyball.
Sure, yeah. I think we talked about it for 15 minutes, dude. Like,
Yeah.
But he does that, and then he talks about kind of their upbringing, and I'm like, thank God that this was offset, and the thing that I wanted to exist now exists.
Yeah. It's content that you want to happen, and I think generally in content creation, and I've heard so many content creators say it, it's like people that get into content creation, it's because they see something, they want something that no one else is doing.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, fuck, I gotta make it myself. And that's it for 99.9% of the time. That's
Sure.
why I made the beautiful game,
Yeah.
video, right? And there's that 0.01% chance where Cypher comes out of nowhere and does content that we wish existed in our community, right? And I think that's the craziest thing. And the other thing, outside of like just like everything you said, which is fully deserved, is like Cypher, in my opinion, and I have to say this, it's the finale. Cypher's been a big part of the community season 2, so we have to, among so many other homies, like, so I mean, shout outs to all of you guys also.
Right.
But I think the big thing that I have to give honest, like, this is the coolest thing that Cypher does in my head, is that he is the only person who can reliably put out content in a fucking timely manner.
Oh, yeah.
Like, literally, when GG signed 4 Melee players, he put it out. When Slippy Champions League, I was like co-hosting that with him. It was one of the most fun things that I've done. But that was out like in 3 hours post of
Mm-hmm.
us recording.
Right.
And like I think the speediness in which Cypher does it is so rare for us degenerate melee players.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's something to behold for sure. Not just the output, but the tight
From a car.
the tightness. Yeah, unreal.
From a car.
I'm
Jesus
really
Christ.
glad he's receiving the accolades, and it's not taking years for him to do so. I mean, I'm glad with our slow burn, right? I think it's easy to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
comparisons. It's like you see a new podcast come up. This is one of the questions he raised. Also, huge shout outs
Mm-hmm.
to Cypher. Final shout out of things he's done is consistent feedback on our
Question Master.
question master, but he will give um full detailed notes and responses to our episodes. Like
Yes.
he'll give like 20 bullets of things that we did, of that things that we talked about and all that. So I expect a finale bullet, but regardless of all
Yeah.
that, you know, and we'll get off Cypher in a second because I'm sure we're making him blush. There's um there's a pride again of having any influence on anyone to to feel empowered to join the scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you see someone come up and I think he got 1,000 listens way earlier than us, and he crossed 50 episodes before us, and all these arbitrary milestones. I think a reflection of, again, my own personal growth, which is kind of all
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to. I'm truthfully just so happy for him, and that's a good feeling to be able to feel happy for someone um who is receiving accolades much quicker than we had.
Yeah, I think that's big character growth from you, honestly. Friend to friend,
Yeah,
it's
I
kind of
agree.
ironic and full circle because we started this podcast from me just reaching out to you, being like, "You okay,
From
man?
a
Are you
salty tweet.
good?"
Yes, a salt
From a
tweet.
salty tweet about Ludwig,
Yeah,
and from all the accolades that he was getting.
right.
And truthfully, I would love to see Cypher as big as Ludwig, but
eh, it's not gonna happen.
but but it's interesting the character growth that you've gone through it, where it's arguably a similar situation and yet a completely different response. Also, that's
Right.
crazy. That's crazy.
No,
If you like, if you ask me.
I'm proud of it, and I think obviously the more we dig into it, there's a realization that one, I mean, the whole Ludwig arc um has kind of been done. Season 2 wasn't
Yeah,
really that was kind of
season
resolved
two
in season
wasn't. It
it,
was resolved season one.
for sure, and again the lesson that carries over still is understanding that, like, feeling jealous or feeling anything negative, or even worse, is like seeing someone be successful and then immediately looking for why they suck or why they don't deserve it to justify those feelings,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of times will justify it, and then all of a sudden you're the righteous person who's trying to take down the asshole who's successful, whatever it is.
Yeah.
um the realization that that is just self-loathing, that is
Mm-hmm.
just being unhappy with where I am and what I'm doing, and that the best way to resolve that is literally to go more inward, is not to lash out. It's to literally be like, all right, what am I what do I want again? Like, what am I trying to do here? Like,
Yeah.
just relax. Like, okay, I haven't I haven't exercised in 3 days, and I haven't practiced piano, and I haven't been doing a good job at work, or whatever is the actual reason. And so, yeah, the big takeaway is just when jealousy comes up, or when I'm feeling that as the instinct of, like, the new young person, or the whatever, um to literally just check myself. Be like, what am I doing wrong? Or what have I fallen off the wagon for?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
really that simple. And then we just revisit the shit we've been talking about every single week.
Yeah. I mean, because the shit that we deal with like is, as we said a few episodes back, cyclical in nature. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of, I mean, as crazy as Beerman is as a person, he one of the best nuggets of knowledge that he has was that like you deal with the same shit, uh like you deal with your like shit like in like kind of waves. Like you're in the thick of it at some points, then it drops down and it comes back in a slightly different way that offsets you. And that's kind of something that I've like definitely taken to heart from his drunken beer wisdom. Is that, I mean, beer adds a lot of things, but I think like that it says a lot in terms of like it's just like that it just makes sense, like, right, like you, like the trauma that we have, how we act as people, how we react to other things, right, in this world, like is cyclical, like it will keep on happening. And it's more so about like just realizing, oh, I'm like doing this again, and not being mad at it, part one, and part two being like, okay, like how can we do this differently next
Sure.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think that is really big. What's interesting is like this journey that you went on was like very much recorded in season one
Oh, yeah.
for you, but for me as well, because like for me it was like during that whole right pre first wasabi pop off,
Mm.
where like remember there was a span like of like a month where I just like took upsets like every time we talked. And it was with a lot of work of like trying to be like, um it was like I don't want to be recognized as a good player, I just want to be a fucking good player.
Sure, sure, sure.
And that's funny because I can see similarities of like that happening with me with like this for you with like content and like and that sort of thing. And so that is really interesting. I think like another thing, if you don't mind me switching topics a little bit, that I'm looking forward to for season 3 is actually the unknown, and
Sure.
like to see if we can like hit our goals. Like that's crazy. Like
Mm.
I still have a running bet for 2022
Yeah, you're right.
of Edwin Budding, because I bought the Book of Melee from him, which everyone should grab. Probably one of my favorite people like to listen to in the community. Just like has such energy, and the way I like the way he like articulates a lot of things, and obviously part of the Melee stats teams, which does amazing work as well. But the Book of Melee, right? We got a sneak peek early with it, and we interviewed him for that. And I met him at Genesis. I reconnected with him at Genesis, and I got him to like sign the book, and he signed it. But the front page of that book, as you know, JD, is a binding contract because he gave the book to me for free, assuming that in 2021, if I hit top 100, I don't pay him back. If I don't hit top 100, I owe him double of what the book would cost, which is like $40.
That's such
So it's
a
a really
that's such a
fun
try
bet.
hard bet. That's so funny. That's
It's
like,
such a fun try hard bet. Yeah, and then COVID happened.
well, yeah. So, so you guys postponed it, of course.
We postponed it, but I mean, me and Edwin still talk, and like, it's still there. It's still coming back, and the goal is 2022 for sure. But like, I'm excited for that. Like, not just in Melee. Like, I know this is in Melee context, and it's really funny because I have the photo here for all our YouTube frogs. Like, you can see it, JD.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's just Edwin Budding signing with the book. But I'm just curious to see like what we like, because that part of season 2, what was fun about it was like coming in with like, let's do this, let's do that, and seeing what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of fun. Like that's what's fun about it, reflecting about it now, is just like it's not like oh, we didn't get to do this, like, oh, well, was like us, like, ah, fuck, we messed up here. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, word. So like we did this, we didn't do that, and that's totally okay. But I think part of it, the challenge is fun, and that's what I'm really excited for. Specifically for me is this Edwin Budding bet, only because I just think it's so funny, man. And it's like I just want to do it. And he made the bet, being like, I think you'll make top 100 2021. So that is the funny part about it. He didn't bet against me.
Sure.
He was betting so that he could like brag to Melee stats that he called Wasabi at the start of the year, sort of thing. Because
Yeah.
hey, that's the biggest currency in Melee stats. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, is getting your guy to be the exact seed that you placed him or
Yes,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah. No, I hear that. And I mean, big shout outs to those guys. Again, just doing the stuff that I'm happy exists and I would never do. Um, and yeah, dude, like the unknown is a great way to put it. Again, just we set expectations for how we want to. I mean, certain things we always make sure we check, right? Is
Yeah.
the are we hitting the correct tone? And the tone is just accurate to what we're feeling, right? So are we being truthful in how we're communicating? Are we, if one of us suggests something that doesn't work to the other one off mic or in DMs, are
Mm-hmm.
we being truthful about, hey, that doesn't work for me, or yes, I like that idea? And it's funny because like it's almost like we've spent the first two seasons pitching tents, and all the hard work of pitching the tent is not lifting the tent up, but literally putting the stakes into the ground and measuring it and making sure the foundation is right. And all we're doing now is keeping all that hard work and just putting a new canvas on it. You know what I mean? It's building on top of the difficult work, and
The
really
foundation.
exactly. And so it's you know I think a lot of things are going to be better. I think 20 plus episodes of recording anything, 20 plus hours of doing something is just, even though our learning curve is not quite what it was in season 1 where we were starting
Mm.
from nothing, we still are on a general upward trajectory. So I think we're going to be better at talking and at podcasting.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, almost season 3 feels less of a um what am I trying to say? It feels less like, okay, I want to make something different, than it is like it we just have to mark this as a different era. Like we are going into a different season, just by and large a 180 swing from what the past 6 months were. This next 6 months needs to be documented differently. That's what season 3 feels like to me. It's literally
Mm.
like we're not reinventing the wheel. We might
Oh yeah.
we might pick a few spots, what needs to be spruced up, what ideas should we bring back, etc. But that's all gravy. It's still a matter of just hitting our tone, doing our thing, and every year that we do this podcast, we become closer to like the veteran Melee podcasters, just the guys who've been doing it forever, who just
Oh yeah.
won't quit their stupid fucking small ass podcasts. Like they just keep doing it, bro. Why do you keep
Yeah.
doing it? And we like
I
it.
know, I know. I think like to add, I feel like what I'm hearing from you, my interpretation of it at least, is
Mm-hmm.
like a refinement of sorts. Like we're not doing anything new really. We got a few new ideas. Like part of it is like stuff like this, right? A multi-part episode is like kind of, I'm feeling the wave of it, right? It
Yeah,
kind
I
of
like it.
vibes
I like it.
hard. Yeah, honestly. So we'll bring this back for season 3 for sure. But like, podcast highlights like we did with tiramisu and like all of that was super sick. But I think like honestly, like it's a refinement. And the way I think of arguably improvement even is like at a certain point, like once you assemble all the information, and this goes for Melee as well, is right, it's like you know everything about the game, right? And or you know a lot about the game. And it's about like refinement, getting more specific about certain situation spacings. And I kind of feel like it's chipping and I feel like I've told you this too. It's like chipping against a slab of marble to build a statue, right? It's not you're adding to it, but you're actually just taking away until it gets to its like purest artistic form, right? And that's what editing is too, like right? Like the beautiful game video I showed you was originally like I don't know, like something like 6.5 minutes, and it got dwindled down and refined to 4 minutes of pure ecstasy. But like, but it was hard. Like I had a hard time with that, and I think like it's gonna be interesting because I feel like that's a possible route where season 3 is going.
I hear that, and I agree. I think there's only so much that we want to add as a pure addition. I mean, I guess you could call the Patreon adding, but that's almost a refinement too. It's looking at our, again, capacity, our capabilities, our, what we know to work for us, and refining the approach
Yeah.
where we say, all right, technically it's not up to us how much additional content we put out. We'll put it up to the people who would want to see it at all. And that is a refinement, because in the
Mm-hmm.
past our or at least my method for the 2 week sprint where I was doing clips all the time was just like, yeah, load in that extra marble. Like, I got space right there. Like, yeah, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. And all of a sudden I'm just surrounded by unchiseled shit
Yeah.
that, suffocated. And so I agree. I think finding, maybe refinement won't work with this metaphor, but the thing I've been harping on a lot is making systems for myself
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
creating a system that allows me to do all the things that are important to me, to be intellectually stimulating while also um, being sustainable on my body and on my
Mhm.
energy, and being truthful to who I am. um, and the Wannabes is almost like an OG system. It was just like a prototype
Yeah.
of that. It's like, what can be intellectually stimulating, truthful to who I am, and not something that takes hours upon hours. And so that system we've built feels like the refinement each season is coming along. It's like, and even by the numbers, season 1 was what, 52 episodes or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I know, I know. It
So
was crazy. But I think like the thing is like yeah, like even the Patreon, as you said, is refinement. Because like also like the ultimate one of the ultimate decisions for me finally agreeing to the Patreon was that like we couldn't push for new things and be able to be ourselves. Right? Like we won't have this whole is Wasabi gonna make top 100 in 2020 art like storyline if I'm busy trying to edit up the wazoo for the Wannabes,
exactly,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And so that's part of it. Like it's like will JD like what's the success of garlic salt and like JD's piano playing and weed smoking? We won't know
Yeah,
unless
dude,
unless we get
all this
the
Wannabes
Patreon.
editing is cutting into my weed smoking, and I can't deal with this. Like, all this unsmoked weed. I'm like, yeah, bring in the weed. Like, there's room. And all of a sudden, I have to edit this fucking episode. I can't smoke a lick. So, dude, thank God you mentioned that.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah, I mean that was arguably more important than anything we
Literally
mentioned so
anything else.
far.
Yeah, because
Anything,
then how am
yeah.
I going to play piano sober? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. All right. Oh man.
What's your I feel like you're trying to pivot to questions. Am I right?
I am trying to pivot to questions. Let's take a quick pause because I gotta just reset my dryer because my dryer's real shitty.
Okay.
So one dry cycle doesn't do the clothes. Check with my girlfriend, and then meet back, and I will have the verdict on whether we do community questions now at the end of part 2 or make it a separate part 3.
All right.
Okay.
We'll meet back in 5. And we're back with community questions to finish off season 2. Will, what do you got for me?
Yeah, so I mean it's not a podcast episode without a few cipher questions. So, first thing was who asked the best question for season 2, JD? Which one off rip stands out in your head?
So, obviously, Cypher has asked about 90% of the questions we got.
Yes, yeah.
But
Question master.
but the one question that comes to mind and it sprouted really good conversation was from S'morehead.
I knew that was what I was gonna say too. So
Yeah.
so I'll pick a different one.
No, that's fine. We could talk about the same one. And the thing is, I don't want to paraphrase. Do you have the question on mine? Are you
I
looking
do,
for it?
I do, I do. So let me see. Let me pull it up quickly.
And as you're doing that, not to take away from Cypher's questions, they ran the gambit of like silly fun questions to topical, like what's your take on this thing everyone's talking about, to like, almost spiritual, like how do you feel, you know coming
Hmm.
through and feeling improvement, and things we want to talk about. So Cypher, no discredit to you, but this question
Yeah.
stands out from S'morehead.
Yeah. So essentially, uh, shit. I thought I had it, but we also, on top of talking about it on the podcast. Okay, I got it finally. Um, Please be this. Yes. Thank you. Jesus Christ. There was also a big Discord conversation about it. That's why. And what's funny is Cypher, like, Cypher asking questions, like, episode in, episode out, led to some more, feeling comfortable asking this question. So, that's amazing to see, like, just within our community. But the question is, what is more important to you, being accepted or being understood?
Whew, man, that question still hits.
Goosebumps. Yeah, it still hits.
Being accepted or being understood. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm almost down to answer it again. But I mean, I think if I recall correctly, I almost I think what I came down on was that being being accepted is, or should be, the baseline.
Mhm.
And I think it's good to accept people without understanding them, but being fully understood takes so much time and is very difficult.
It's so rewarding though, too.
Exactly. So,
Like I think,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, half my trauma from childhood is just like not feeling understood. So you know where I side on this question as we went over it.
Yeah, and it's just such a great question because it makes you really think about your priorities. And I
Hmm.
think the instinct is that, yes, I want to feel accepted. Um,
Yeah.
but think about how it's almost like sympathy versus empathy. It's it's easy to sympathize with people and to say, yeah, your situation is shitty, but think about what it takes to truly empathize. Um,
Hmm.
and that dynamic is, that's why the question's so great, is that it's not
Yeah.
just about answering it necessarily. It's about like, oh shit, I don't know at first glance. I need to think
Hmm.
about what my values are. Like,
Yeah, I agree. And to flip it on its head, it's like also like sometimes like it's also rewarding to admit to someone, like for the person receiving it, like I've appreciated when Pilar, my girlfriend, has done it, is when she's like, yeah, like I can't empathize with you, like I haven't been through that situation, right? Because like it's not trying to get everyone to be empathetic all the time. That's
mhm,
impossible. Like that's
mhm,
an impossible feat. But it's more so about like knowing when you're able to empathize versus sympathize also is, I think, super super crucial, that spawned from that discussion. Because like there have been stuff that you've brought up to me, like when we were talking, like not on record, right? Just over the phone and stuff like that. And like I've been the first to admit, like I hear you, I'm trying to hear and understand what you're saying, but I can't empathize with you about it
sure,
because I just like don't feel the same way about it. And I think that also is like so crucial. So that's why I think the question was super sick. But I have another one, honestly, that holds a special place in my head.
great,
And this one is from Cypher, which is
statistically
uh
probable.
probable. You could bet you could bet your 401k on that.
Right.
Um but it's solo melee practice was recently described to me as a meditative action, almost like comfort
Uh,
food that allows to reset a little bit. Does this resonate with us? And as someone who solo practices every day and like had to do it, you know, all the time because of I switched to the box, like that, it holds a very split special place in my heart because it's just like, dude, I have to wake up at 6 so I can like get at least 45-30 minutes of melee before I start work, or I'm not a real person, you know? And that's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
And it's like no one, not even Pilar, questions me. My therapist is like, yeah, you should probably play melee.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like no one questions me that actually knows me.
I think if you had to give someone one 10-minute segment of how to understand you best, it would be you explaining. I think there was a time where like you explained like the importance of having fun off of this topic, if I'm not mistaken, or
Yes, yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so yeah, and I love that question too. And obviously, I've had spurts where I've played more than recently. I've been
Hmm.
taking an off season, but I had the only reason I'm good at the game is that I had long periods of time where I was practicing every day, and
Yeah.
so I think what's bizarre about this question, to get slightly off topic, is that so many players coming into the scene now almost don't feel the need to solo practice. It's not their only option. You know,
Yeah.
in
Upstate.
2014, yeah, upstate exactly when Uncle Punch wasn't a thing, when the big decision was, do I play PM or do I play
Yeah.
melee? um, that's all we got, and
Hmm.
finding satisfaction through solo improvement was uh easier to find yourself doing because there wasn't the slippy that we have now. And so yeah, I think if we could take a moment, any opportunity we have, to be like, yo, solo practice is still the shit.
I
And
think I might need to monologue that actually, because
please
like
do. Yeah, overshoot the
my
fuck out of
brain
that.
is, yeah, we need to overshoot that topic. That is
Please.
that is a thing I'm committed to trying out for season 3
Oh
of
no,
Sis.
that was a time rather than a an energy thing, because
Yeah, I
that's
know.
such a fun idea.
But like, dude, I have to say also, like, the thing is like solo practice like kind of just like further emphasize like the lesson that like, dude, like if you care about something, you just gotta put work into it.
Sure.
Like really, that's it. That's
Yes,
it. And you can hit it.
yes, and here's something I've been thinking about a lot, and the idea of
Okay,
the,
shoot,
the idea
go
of
for it.
grinding. Let me give this
Yes.
a dirty 30, right? So when people say like grinding at the game, I'm grinding. Truthfully, I don't think 100% of the time you, Wasabi, are playing melee in the morning. I don't think much of that is grinding. I don't like that word in this context,
Okay,
because
interesting. Yeah.
when I think of grind, I think of someone who wakes up at 5 o'clock to be a garbage man, and needs to run the routes to make a decent paycheck and to support a family. That's a grind, because it
Hmm.
grinds you down. And when you are playing melee, maybe you're grinding before a major because you're saying, okay, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to put forward some of this capacity in order for this greater goal. But
Hmm.
to me, a grind is by definition unsustainable. That's what I'm going to get at. And so in
I
this
love that.
in this question, when we're talking about meditative, would you ever say you're grinding if you're meditating every day? It's like, no,
No.
of course not. What?
That's yeah, fair point. Touche there.
You know what I mean? And so I think this is a semantic thing. And speaking of semantics, we have other questions to go through. But
Yes, I will
um,
get to that.
I think one topic that I want to overshoot on is the idea of grinding as just the how we use it as a word, what we think
Hmm.
about with grinding. It's very complicated, and I'm obsessed with it. I'm grinding to get the word grind to not be a grind.
Hmm.
That was
I like
terrible.
that. I like that.
I
That
I hated it.
there's a thumbnail in there somewhere. There's a
Please,
thumbnail title.
God, no.
Okay. So next question though. This one, I think this is a quick and dirty one,
Sure.
which is, do for reals, do y'all want to try to attend the same IRL tournaments by the end of season 3? Please say yes, and please say that it's Wasabi coming over here so the whole Discord can show up. And there's two quick and dirty things I have to say about that. One, yes, like I
Yeah.
will be visiting at some point. That's it, happening at some point by the end of season 3. Two, like also majors. But I think we have to like do a Wannabes like podcast meetup at a major too.
Yes. Oh my
That is
God.
like, I
Yes.
think we've gotten to the point where we have enough listeners that it would be just fun to meet people and like put a face to the name. And like, I did not know Smorehead was redhead until like I tuned into his stream one time. You know,
Sure.
I just thought of like literally Smorehead. Like I don't know, I just think of his profile picture. So it's really funny.
That's a
But
funny example because I'm literally carpooling with him to Chess's bachelor party.
that's so funny.
It's
Well,
very
please say hi
funny.
to Smore.
Yeah, it's very
Please
funny.
say-
Your relationship with him and mine is like he's just my boy beforehand.
I know.
And you're like, oh, Smorehead. Like, thanks for the question. Like, it's funny.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny.
But
I'm
so
yeah,
down. I'm so down for a get together.
It's happening. That's all I have to say. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
We're gonna do major meetups too. We'll get a sick dinner and it will be fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then, do you have anything to say? I took
I'm
that
just
to the road.
I'm just rolling the hype here. Keep going, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking hype. All right, next thing. All right. This is another quick and dirty, and we'll end with a real question. JD, really salty snack or sugary dessert? What's your preference?
I'm a salty snack guy.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah, that's an easy clap, and that's because right now I'm literally addicted. I've journaled about this recently about my addictions.
Yeah.
I made an addiction tier list, and cheese.
Cheese is great.
My
Cheese is
addiction.
crazy.
I have a legitimate addiction to cheese, and I've been eating Tostitos chips on a plate with Costco branded mixed cheese.
Kirkland is the best,
dude.
man.
You know the Kirkland bag of cheese. You know what I'm talking
Yes,
about?
dude. Yes, of course.
Yo.
Also, Kirkland pesto. I like.
Oh
it.
yes, dude. Yes, that's the best, dude. For so long, you could literally make a Kirkland meal where you just have pasta. You take leftover of their chicken, and then you just make my go-to is rigatoni, but then you just have some of the pesto on that with a little leftover
so good.
So it's like free lunch. Oh my god, yeah, Kirkland cheese. But yeah, that sugary snack. What about you? You got a sweet tooth?
I'm salty gang all the way. The amount of times I've had dessert and wanted something salty afterwards.
Yeah.
All right, I'm 1.5 years in. That's just leave it on there. I'm salty gang all the way. There's nothing else to say about that.
Word.
All right. So, last question. Is it nice or annoying that so melee podcasts are out there right now? And I actually have strong thoughts on this, JD, if I may take the lead.
Please do.
Short answer, yes. As in short answer, yes, it is amazing that there are so many melee podcasts. Sorry, I know. I'm 1.5 years in. I'm getting old. I'm late 20s now, JD. 27 now.
Okay.
It hits you. You'll feel it next year. But I'm so happy there are so many melee podcasts. The one thing that annoys me about it, and we are big culprits of this too, which I hope we can start rectifying a little bit in season 3, is that no one's got time to listen to every single melee podcast.
Right.
Unless you're maybe Cypher.
Yeah, I think Cypher literally does.
Cypher might do it. I know. But here's the thing, is I think there is such a lack for like content between 10 to 30 minutes in terms of like from podcasts. And I wish that like that space can start filling up. Because I think it's just like, I love everything that Austin Melee says, that Melee Stats says, that Bottom of Smash Mountain says, that the Radio Melee says, that Scar and Toth Show says, that, you know, every Melee Stats podcast that I'm probably missing some too. I have to go back to the Austin Melee podcast guide for that, honestly. But like, even I don't have the time to do it, right? And I mean, like, let's not forget the Wannabes too in that, you know. But like, I don't even have the time for that. So I just wish that I don't think there's an oversaturation. More so, I just think that like right now people have to pick and choose what they want to listen to in the Melee podcast realm, and there's no alternative of like, oh, maybe I can like listen to like a little bit of like the mix up and a little bit of the Wannabes because they have like 20-minute segments instead of like an hour to an hour and a half segment, which is both important, but I think like making it more accessible is a big thing in my head.
Yeah, I think that's a really good take. And it's certainly probably the leading issue, if that's a word for it.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, like my Melee content intake has gone drastically down. Like I've settled on a really just I love how the game fits into my life right now, and I just don't watch as much Melee stuff. I'll watch whatever. Regardless, I don't
Yeah.
listen to any of the other podcasts, and I respect the shit out of them. Here's the one thing that he said annoyed in the question. I'll go off that. I tried to find something as you were saying, like, what am I annoyed about? Is there anything I'm annoyed about? What I want to see, and it's more of a challenge that I want to put out there, is that the people that are making the podcasts right now, are they recognizing the true benefit of what they're doing, not to the community, not to the
Yeah.
ecosystem of content, but to their skill set as a communicator? Are they using the podcast as a way to improve the way they speak, to improve how they communicate, and to improve their voice and refine their individuality? Is that something that our podcasters are doing? Because the respect that we all have for each other is palpable. It's like we all give each other pats on the back, and it's truthful. And obviously, like, I wish I had the time to listen to all the other podcasts. I simply don't, but
I know one of the best like things I've done recently was like I listened to the Melee Stats waiting for the game series where they interviewed Aiden, right? Formerly from BTS Smash. While going on like a 2-hour walk. But I had to be like going on a 2-hour walk to do it.
Right. And this kind of ties in both of our points as we wrap up the episode and the series right now. Is there's a way to make it more consumable, of course. There's a way to make it more successful, and there's a way to make the Melee podcasting a force to be reckoned with. But I think the greatest value that we have as participants in this medium is the skill, is actually learning to do the thing, and that it takes a long time to develop this. And I just hope that, if all the podcasts continue on their trajectory, that by the end of it, none of us sound remotely similar. I don't, Melee players have a vernacular that's, everyone seems to sound the same, and everyone uses the same language, and they say, oh, just up tilt. They say, yeah, bro, that's fucking whack. I don't know. They use generalities. They can be bucketed into like Smasher just by the way they talk and the way they communicate. And this, I just, again, putting the challenge out there that if you are participating in the medium, to fucking find your voice through it. I know I've gone a long way, and Will as well. Like, both of us have found so much about ourselves. Like, make it selfish. Improve yourself. Fuck the viewership. This is not a moneymaker. It's not going to save the community. It's not, there's no holier than thou attitude towards it. It's just communication. It's just the platform. And if it continues,
what content do you want to see there?
You'll make it. Just make the shit you want to see. And me and Will wanted to see what it was like for people early in their career, and that didn't exist. And we have to self-fulfill that prophecy, don't we?
We have to. I mean, it's almost like, we gotta end part 2 officially now, JD. And all I can say, because you put it so beautifully in your rant, is just find out next time in Dragon Ball, in Dragon Ball Z.
You're wasted, my guy.
Oh yeah, I have.
A beer and a half.
Good day of work, of course, dude. Alcohol hits you different I gotta say, dude, alcohol hits you
I'm
different.
telling you, I'm way more fest prepared. You have
Long
no
Island
chance.
will destroy me if I ever go back.
Yeah.
I will get ruined by Long Island.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I'm
not leaving Aeon. I'm bringing a sleeping bag.
Well, you'll crush it in bracket, and then you'll get the bruise will crush you. That's certainly gonna happen. Oh my god, what a badass!
I had to. I also got to change. I got to get ready for a family dinner.
Yeah, we gotta go.
It's been a pleasure. End of season 2, baby.
Wild.
We got there, JD. Season 3 and a Patreon and some surprises in the next 2 weeks. We're taking a week break.
Yep.
But that's it.
That's it.
Dude.
All right.
That's it. End of season 2.
Okay.
Peace, everyone.
See you, Will. Bye.
Bye.